Hello, my name is Adrian Gibson from Jaskiran Astrology, and I've popped on here today to talk about today's full moon in Scorpio that happens at 1:22 p.m. this afternoon on the East Coast, and you just need to adjust for wherever you are in the world. Um, it's a big moon. Um, I found it a bit challenging to work through its energies, but I think I've come up with something that seems to resonate with me. This is a moon of change. This is the moment I think that we've all been working toward to like we've been in this process of changing really over the last couple of years, but I think, in the beginning of this year, the fire horse were like taking off on this new sense of self, and I really feel like this moon is the one that will help us to be stepping forward. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring up the chart because there's a lot to talk about. And there we go. All right. So, like I said, this is later on this afternoon. Um, I'm posting this in the morning of the first. Let's see. So, like I said, this is about change. Let's start with the moon down here. The moon is in Scorpio. Scorpio is the archetype of empowerment, ultimately. And it's through metamorphosis that we become empowered. So let me break this down. There's a lot of, Scorpio is a water sign. So it's with the emotions and it's deep water. It's the deep emotions that are kept down underneath our consciousness. They're down there and they're driving these obsessions, compulsions, triggers, what we project out onto other people, which is those things that we can't hold within ourselves. And we're not holding them because they're down underneath the surface. So when we have a moon in Scorpio, we're talking about becoming very secure with what is down in the bottom. So I would say expect things to come up, things from the past, emotional situations. But let's bring them up and look at them because bringing these things up from the depths where they're hiding and running roughshod over us underneath our awareness, when we bring them to the surface, we can work with them. We can, make a plan and begin to make those changes. And those changes are the metamorphosis, and the metamorphosis is the empowerment. It changes us from one being to another. And so I really wanted to talk about this moon because it's a full moon, and all full moons are the completion of the new moon. So the new moon in Scorpio happened 11/20, and I'm going to go ahead and switch over to that chart because I think it's really interesting that Mercury was conjunct this, it was like conjunct this lunation. The new moon in Scorpio essentially was we were beginning a new cycle in empowering ourselves. And it was linked to our own thought process because Mercury was retrograde at that degree. We were beginning to think about ourselves in a different way. So I just wanted to bring that up. You can see that Uranus was at 29 degrees of Taurus and it was opposing it. So we were having this, we were breaking apart at this time, fracturing um, some information about what we've been hiding, about the way we have survived. And we were coming to the end of that cycle. Now, Uranus has since moved into Gemini, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I did want to show you this chart and how really was squaring the nodes, how this beginning cycle is completing in this current moon. So I'm going back to the current moon. Here we are. The moon now stands alone, and this is where we are empowering ourselves. We see that Mercury and the sun are now opposing it. And well, Mercury isn't quite opposing, but it will be shortly. And we're completing this cycle. The Mercury was retrograde, so we were really bringing those thoughts inward. And now Mercury is in Aries, which is this instinctual way of thinking it. We've really Mercury's been through Pisces and cleared out all the ways of thinking that were no longer serving us and moved into Aries, where we're beginning a new cycle of thinking differently. And we're coming to the end, and that's matching up with Chiron, which is healing the wound of not being able to show up as our true selves. This links into what this moon is about because when we can't show up as our true selves, we end up submerging parts of ourselves. And it's these shadow parts of ourselves that have kept us fractured on the inside and having these projections. Perhaps they've been messing with our relationships, um, relationships to ourselves, relationships to other people, and that it's the time that these are going to come up so that we can see what they are and then work with them to make ourselves whole, to just be a whole being, a whole and healed being. So this is the energy of this moon. Now, it's an interesting thing because we've been since last fall, last November, there's been a lot of scorpionic energy. I've talked about mostly through the deacons that some of these planets have been not in Scorpio per se, but in the Scorpio deacon. Right now, we have Jupiter still in the Scorpio deacon. It's in the second deacon. It's about to move out of it um, shortly because it's just really got in, but um, into the last degree of the second deacon. When it reaches 20 degrees, it will have reached the third deacon. But in the second deacon of Cancer is Scorpio. And so this is a trine. This Jupiter is expanding our inner worlds. It's expanding our ability to feel secure within ourselves. And it's expanding our ability to follow our own truth. And so, and it's doing it through digging up stuff. When we expand the darkness, we can it can come up easier. And so Jupiter is really helping this moon, and it is in a trine. The moon is also trine to the North Node, which is essentially saying that we are becoming our future selves. We're at a trine. This is an integration process to become our future selves. Our future selves are in Pisces. It's wholeness. This is the energy of bringing ourselves to wholeness after having parts of us submerged down. So you can see how this chart is leading to a bunch of change. Change is uh, it's a shift of consciousness that we're having. So Uranus has moved into Gemini. This is a big thing. Uranus spent the last 7 years in Taurus, breaking apart our values. We've had a lot of tumultuous stuff happen in the world, and inwardly, we're having to determine with ourselves, do we align with this? And it's been a grappling. It's been an awareness that has come to the surface. And now Uranus has moved into Gemini. Gemini is like how we gather information from our surroundings and how we communicate that to other people. So this is how we have our own perspectives of what our reality is. Now, Venus has also recently moved in since the new moon. Um, into Gemini, and Venus in Gemini is really attuning ourselves to information, new information. We're aligned with new information because when Uranus and Venus met at the 29-degree mark, at really the last moment of Uranus being in Taurus, the two met, a new cycle began, and now both planets are in this new information field. Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. It's like the consciousness, the larger consciousness. If you think of consciousness as just being this uh, field and our brains being a small cup in this field, we can only hold so much of the consciousness and the awareness um, with Mercury. It's like the earthly mind. And so it doesn't perceive what's happening outside of the earthly realm where Uranus does. And so when Uranus drops in, particularly, I can say that we would be experiencing downloads of information that we won't even really understand where this information comes from, but we will perceive it. And so this is really the beginning of us, of our consciousness shift. We're going to be having a lot of downloads. We're really ending a cycle that we've been in for probably thousands of years, but we're ending that cycle and our consciousness is shifting. This is going to be a 7 year, a little bit more than 7 year cycle that Uranus will be in Gemini. So I imagine that we will have tiny shocks along the way, but ultimately, the way we think and the way we see our world will be completely different. So, this is the biggest change. We're going to change the way that we see the world around us. We're going to change our inner worlds by becoming whole. Um, we said that Mercury is also in Aries. In fact, this whole stellium in Aries is starting a new cycle, so that ultimately is about change as well. I want to talk about Pluto and the nodes because this is the bottom line. Pluto and the nodes are how evolutionary astrology decides, what the basic energy of the chart is about. And when we're looking at Pluto, Pluto is getting ready to move retrograde this month. Um, it's at 5 degrees. It's an Aquarius. Pluto's journey is to come through and really um, transmute our individuality. We're breaking free from the system that we've had before. So, and it's an interesting thing that our consciousness, which is shifting, is ruled by Uranus. So we are now working toward the exact trine with Uranus, and which is helping us to integrate. We're coming into our own selves. We are stepping into our true selves. We're aligning our thought process with our true selves. We are also making our inner worlds whole, which will allow us to shine our true selves out into the world. And we are, yeah, we're individuating. We are turning into our true selves. the polarity point of Pluto, which is the direction of evolution, is in Leo, 5 degrees of Leo at this point. And um, Leo is the true self. It's the authenticity. It's the inner child. It's who we were as children. Very innocent and curious and funny and just uh, in the moment and in the now. There's not cares of worries of what's coming up next. And so it's this being, this inner child that we're really trying to release through this moon in Scorpio because so much stuff has been pushed down. We're trying to bring it up to the surface. And then the sun in Taurus is like, we want to embody that. Our sun, we want to embody that true sense of self. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, so Pluto is squaring this lunation. And this is an interesting thing because this kind of T square is like, it's a change. We have to actually make a choice to change. When we're dealing with squares, it's like two different energies and they don't, they're not on the same track. We literally have to turn a corner, a square to make that. And we have to choose to turn that corner. So each of us is going to be making a choice to be making these changes that are happening. But we have to choose to step into our true selves, to just be as authentic as we can. We have to choose to dig this stuff up, and we have to choose to shine our light. So this energy is also pushing for a big change. The other thing that we have going on is that Uranus and Venus are squaring the nodes. So when we have a square of the nodes, it's a skip step, but it's really a point of where things have to change. When you have this skip step, there's a flip-flopping, but we keep going back and forth between our old selves where we see ourselves as separate and to our new evolution as seeing ourselves as part of the whole and a complete being. We're going back and forth, and it's a matter of consciousness. It's a matter of shifting our perspective of reality. And it's also about listening to new information that's coming in. We have to get curious about what's happening. The energy's a bit strange, and getting curious, looking up new information, listening to different people talking about what's happening can be helpful. So, let's see, I've talked about all of that. Let's bring back the chart. The final thing that I really want to talk about are the three yods, finger of gods. We have one here that is the moon that's conjunct with, it's a vertex with two inconjuncts. We have one with the south node, um, and it's south node Pluto, and then this conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. And then the final one is Saturn. Saturn is so these are all points of change. Basically, what these yods or finger of gods are pointing to is something that's unconscious but is destined for our future. So there's like an energy that's making us want to move toward the vertex, but we don't see it because these blind spots, these inconjuncts are blind spots. So I want to start talking about the moon because this is where we are at. This to me is uh, the key yard, our journey here, the vertex, the destined future is to become whole, to dig up what is in our subconscious and to empower ourselves. And we're going to do this through two different inconjuncts. We have an internal inconjunct with Venus. This one acts like Virgo. The ability to take in new information and to um, to attune to new information is going to be an internal adjustment. We have to um, when we are exposing things, we have to listen to this information a little bit differently, and make an adjustment, figure out what's going on, and make our internal adjustment. When we are dealing with Saturn, Saturn is crystallizing our new sense of self. And so this is using an external adjustment. This is where we're putting ourselves into the society. Are we going to put ourselves in as our, past sense of self? No, we're going to put ourselves in toward the future sense of self, which is whole, and really help to crystallize that. Um, and then the South Node is the next one. Again, this unconscious awareness that is made conscious. We're going to have crises when we have these issues. So, with the South Node, we've got the internal adjustment, which is the Saturn and Neptune um, conjunction. And the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is crystallizing this new sense of self. But the new sense of self is Piscean, very spiritual whole, where really we've when Neptune moved into Aries, we experienced the reset. Now we're crystallizing the reset, and Saturn will move forward and really crystallize our future selves. And so this is like the dream of who we were before we even got conditioned is being crystallized. Our true selves, our inner children. And it causes a crisis with the old self. Pisces also is this new self, and there's a crisis. And this is the destined change. We are destined to stop seeing ourselves as separate from each other, from the rest of the world, from the earth, from the plants and animals, and really begin a consciousness shift. And then finally, Saturn, and we're talking about all the same energies here. Saturn is another point. We really have to crystallize this new sense of self. And it's going to happen through becoming aware that this South Node in Virgo these are, this is the old paradigm where we saw ourselves as separate, where we really were separate because we had so much stuff pushed down to be able to fit in to the external world the way we thought we had to fit in. Now, this new paradigm is saying, no, we're going to come into our true selves and we are going to act from that point, and the external world will change because of it. So, these are the energies that I see happening. This is a moon of empowerment. We are looking for empowerment. We are choosing empowerment. And yeah, this is a powerful moon. And I hope that I've explained it clearly enough as to how I see it. I'm going to stop the share. So, yeah, thank you for listening. I hope that this was helpful for you. And I will put my written moon report from my Substack account in the link below, as well as my website. If you're interested in having me take a look at your chart and see how these energies are working for you and maybe help guide you into how you can embrace all of these new energies, please reach out. Well, thank you again for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Happy full moon in Scorpio.